Hey millennials, because apparently that's my demographic on this channel. Do you like wars? Do you like tactics? Do you like unbearably cheesy intros that make you turn off the video instantly? Please don't do that, I'll stop. Well, we've got some of that here in the war tactics demo. Now, I wasn't going to give this a dedicated video and would play it on my own time, but the developer sent me an email about it, and while I don't think English is their native language, the game looked interesting enough to try out. As it turns out, I'm one of only 2 viewers on their YouTube trailer. I know. Hold the applause. Which kind of breaks my heart for any game, if I could be honest with you. So here I am fighting the good fight to help out. Now, I only have 7-ish hours played, but I played through all 10 levels and pretty much optimized them, which I will release after this. But spoiler alert, it's mostly just abusing infinite reactivator loops, so it is a bit boring. I wrote 3 whole pages of notes in my notebook, which I would show you, but then you'd see just how awful my handwriting is, and that cannot be known by anybody I wouldn't trust with my life. My eldritch scribbles would put doctors to shame. My English teacher proclaimed to the whole class he didn't need my name on the paper because my handwriting was so distinct. That's not a joke, okay? That actually happened. My handwriting is that bad. Anyways, I digress. Let's begin. Premise. There isn't one. Sound design. The music needs to be cleaned up a bit, as it's a bit choppy and low res. The unit sounds they're pretty stock, but they're relatively consistent with their damage types, so I think it's fine. Graphics. Kind of like the graphics. Every unit is distinct, and I can tell all of them apart from each other at a glance, which is the important bit, okay? They're pretty basic, but that's not a bad thing. They look a lot better than my own attempts to recreate Advanced Warrior style art in a graphical design class I took in college, so, who am I to judge? Gameplay. Here's where the biggest differences in the genre stand out. There's no unit production at all. There are these neutral units that need 2 infantry or mech hits to capture, regardless of their HP. Unit damage is based on its damage type, not an actual damage chart. For example, fighters, infantry, and flak tanks all have the exact same attack of 40 light, which does 1.5 times damage to other light armor units, so infantry actually one-shot each other at only 50 HP, which is kind of wild. Light attacks do normal damage to medium armor and half damage to heavy armor. Medium damage, on the other hand, does normal to light, medium, and heavy. And heavy damage does half to light, normal to medium, and 1.5 times to other heavy. There might be an exception in here I missed, but this goes for all the damage types in the game. They also don't show damage numbers when you would apply an attack action, so you basically just need to know what everything does, or get really, really used to right-clicking every unit all the time to know just how much damage and what type a unit will do, and how much HP the unit they're targeting has. And I made a chart here to help you out. You're welcome. Anyways, units can store their actions up to 5, which heavily encourages defensive play. And speaking of action storing, there's some very unique units that you pick up along the way, like reactivators and teleporters. And boy, are these things broken. You know, people say they're going infinite in a rogue game. Well, you actually go infinite if you have 2 reactivators next to each other. This should probably be fixed, but I will say it's kind of fun to abuse the game mechanics here. But as for fixing it, you could hard limit actions to 5 or less total actions per turn, so letting it recharge. You could make it so reactivators can't be affected by each other, or you could limit unit actions to 1 max like bomb trucks already do. Speaking of, what a wild unit to release in a game in 2026. Yeah, you heard me. Welcome to the new year, you old guy, you. Or as I like to call it, 2020 number 7. Surely this'll be our year, right? Anyways, if you've seen my Apes Warfare videos, you'll know I made a few mix-ups with unit orders, because in this game, you have to click your unit again to cancel their action, or click on another unit. And what do you know, there's a self-detonate button on the bomb truck that's really easy to misclick when you're trying to cancel an action. This game's control scheme is kind of bonkers, and by the way, there's no controller support at all, so you best get used to clicking everything with your mouse. In fairness, it is at least a functional control scheme. It's definitely not as bad as the early 2000s like game camera controls, looking at you, Super Mario Sunshine, but it needs work. Narrative. Non-existent. Next. Characters and dialogue. Also non-existent, so let's just break it all down. I will preface this by dividing the next 2 sections into fixes and recommendations. I will put them all on the next few screens for the developer to fix, though I'm not sure how much it'll help, as I don't think their English is the best, but here goes. Your main menu options don't actually change volume. Your info needs to have a check to make sure it's actually on the screen. Levels really should have a name or number on the selection screen, and speaking of, they're all outdated. Small hills have a typo, Sample Hills. There's no damage pop-up, which makes it hard to tell at a glance how much damage was done or will be done. Nutrients don't have info. There's no controller support, which I normally wouldn't put in fixes and recommendations, but the entire genre's kind of built on it, so I'm making an exception here. Mechs are named artillery, which, I mean, I guess they are, and the artillery are called self-propelled artillery, which is wordy as heck. Bridges don't work. Not sure if they were ever intended to. AI can capture after moving through neutral units, but the player can't. Maybe I'm big dumb and couldn't figure it out, but would go a long way to optimizing some levels. Pretty sure reactivators shouldn't be affecting each other for infinite loops on other units. Neutral bomb trucks don't explode like allied enemy ones. Forest tooltip should say in the forest or something along those lines, not up the forest unless you mean up on top of the forest tile, which is also awkward. Should definitely separate the unit names because having them all be one word like medium tank or self-propelled artillery is, little confusing. You should definitely allow the player to open the escape menu on the enemy turn. I feel like I'm being held hostage here. Not sure if the developer intended this, but air units also get the +1 movement from roads, which doesn't really make any sense, though I'm not complaining that my bombers can move 4 spaces instead of 3. They're pretty slow, and the music is a bit choppy in the quality, and obviously very repetitive, but that's a separate issue entirely. Cool, give you some time to simmer before moving on. Okay. Conclusion. I apologize for being a little harsh, but it's because I want every game to be its best self, and War Tactics is no exception. As for the actual conclusion, War Tactics is definitely competent in its systems and has some pretty cool ideas, even if the execution needs some work. I had fun playing it, but the majority of people are not going to spend their time right-clicking everything and making their own damage chart, so I'm a bit of an outlier, just keep that in mind. There's no story or characters to get attached to here, and the music does need to be cleaned up a bit, as it sounds a bit compressed, but I think the unit sounds and graphics are mostly fine otherwise. It's interesting to me that there's no unit production, so most of the levels revolve around capturing neutral units and fighting it out, though it's a bit gimmicky and I can see it getting old pretty quickly. I do really like the idea of teleporters in a turn-based game, however, that's a really good idea, so kudos for that. Reactivators, on the other hand, are definitely a bit strong, especially considering the action system in this game, which can lead to an entire army getting deleted by a single unit, but they're fun to use. They just need some adjustment, that's all. I would say that War Tactics is worth a try, especially if you're a fan of Advanced Wars likes. It definitely feels more of like a tech preview or alpha than an actual demo of a game, but I still enjoyed playing through it. Overall, War Tactics is a solid first attempt at a game, and I'm looking forward to seeing how the game and developer evolve over time. And as for you, the viewer who's watched this far, I appreciate you. Spent a lot of my free time making this video, getting the footage, scripting, adding effects and visuals, so thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Also, like, comment, subscribe. Okay, bye.